brains, they check everything else, and there is nothing organic wrong with that person, except their thinking that makes it so. How about this one? Let us place our thoughts upon holy things. Let them be pure and true, for the only security for any soul is what? What does that mean? There's also wrong thinking. You can't do right thinking if there's also not wrong thinking. We are to use every means that God has placed within our reach for the government and cultivation of our thoughts. His truth will sanctify us body and soul and spirit, and we shall be enabled to rise above temptations. Do you know how many people spend time exercising to get their body in shape, but how few of us exercise to get our minds in shape? We will eat all kinds of things, we'll exercise, we'll buy certain things to help us get our bodies in the right peak shape, but so many of us forget about our minds. And we'll let any thought come across our mind and we'll go with that. That shouldn't be so. So how do we change our thoughts? This is where we get to the practical part. If you need to take a picture of the slides, that's fine. If you want to take notes, I suggest you do that. So here we go. This is how we're practically going to change our thoughts when we tend towards those negative, self-defeating thoughts. So this is the sheet that I give my clients who are working with me. It's called an ABCDE sheet, or an ABC sheet, I call them that. And don't worry if you don't know all 26 letters of the alphabet, you only have to remember the first 5 to do this activity. Only the first 5. By the way, I'm going to give you a resource so that you can download this sheet too at the very end. So I'll tell you how to do that, so don't worry. But as you can see across the top of this sheet, there's different things that each letter is associated with. So I'm going to go through each of these with you so that you learn how to do this. So when you're at home or later today, you can go through this on your own and challenge your thinking if you have any thoughts that shouldn't be there. So the A stands for activating event. The only reason we call it activating event is because it starts with an A. It just helps you remember it better. But other words that we could use for activating event is also triggers. What happens when you trigger something? Like, don't think of mental health, but you flip the switch. What happens when you flip the switch? The light comes on. If you push a start button, what happens? Something gets activated or starts, right? Now, here's the thing. I want you to remember, not every time that you flip a switch does the light go on. Why is that? Because the switch only activates something else that has to be there, right? You can't have a switch not connected to electricity. You can't expect the light to go on if you flip the switch and there's no electricity connected to it. This is really important when it comes to our activating events because so many of us are activated by something that maybe somebody else isn't activated by, right? Do you have somebody in your life that activates you? They do something for you, or to you, but somebody else in your life may not be activated by that person or stressed out by that person. Am I the only one? Don't leave me hanging here, people. Come on, this isn't just me. Okay. So we have different types of triggers or stressors in our lives. And I'm going to break this down into 2 categories, but the first one we're going to talk about is external. There are 2 things that are triggers or activating events to us that are external to us. The first one is people. I know some of you are already thinking of someone. I know this because I work with a lot of people. So here's the thing. I don't want you to just think of the worst person in your life. That's where we tend to go towards. But you know, even that lovely person sitting next to you that you've been married to for a long time, and you love with all your heart, but maybe they don't chew their food the way that you would like them to. And that really triggers something inside of you. And you can't help it, but oh man, if they would just close their mouth or not chew so loudly, it would be so different. So we have people in our lives that trigger something in us. I don't want you to just be thinking of the 10 version people, but be thinking of people in between, and not just people, but the things that people might do. Sometimes it's something that a lot of people could do that triggers me, but this person does this. Now here's the thing, some of you are going to be tempted to go home after this and say, Amanda said this, you shouldn't be doing this anymore. Now here's the thing, when we do these sheets, this is not so you can go tell somebody to stop doing what they're doing. This is so that you can be mindful and aware of what activates you. Because not everybody is going to be activated by these people or the things that these people say or do. It may just be affecting you. So this is very important. Don't go home and, give somebody a hard time because they do this thing or these things, whatever. But there's also another external thing that can trigger us or activate something inside of us, and that is circumstances. It could be the weather. Does everybody like the same weather? No. It could be traffic. I remember I went to South Carolina many, many years ago, and I got to ride in a shuttle between a place I was doing a conference and the hotel that I was staying at. I think they gave us 5 miles that shuttle service, and that was perfect for where I was going. And I got in the shuttle. I was the only person on that shuttle almost the whole week I was there. It was like having my own personal chauffeur for free. And that guy who was driving that shuttle would talk every single day to me. We had great conversations, but one of the things I could not get over was how many times he said how much traffic was on the highway. And I'm thinking, I am from California and I don't see any cars here. What are you talking about? Traffic. And he kept talking about how bad the traffic was, There's so many people out here. And I'm like, so many people, I've seen many trees and shrubs along the highway. Where are all these people you're talking about? And there's no cars around us. Okay, there went one, maybe, but that was it. And I was from I should say Silicon Valley, if you know where that is, the Bay Area of California. And I'm like, any time of day we can be walled up on the highway and nowhere to go because it's so stopped. And you can see that we can all have a different perspective of even traffic. But how about politics? Dare I say that in any room? But all of these circumstances can affect us differently. I can talk to somebody on this side, I can talk to somebody on that side, and they can be like, yeah, whatever. Or I can talk to somebody on this side or somebody on that side, and they can you believe this? And they're about to murder somebody because of what's going on in the news. Do you know what activates you? But there's another thing that activates us too, and this is perhaps the one that often goes unnoticed, and it's internal. A lot of us have internal activating events that we don't realize are activating us. And this is what happens maybe when you grow up in a home and you hear something over and over and over again and you start to absorb that thing, so even when that person is not there, you're still ruminating on it. You still have these thoughts. I liken it to having a playlist. I know some of you probably don't have playlists. I don't even have a playlist. But does everybody know what a playlist is? Where you put that on your phone or whatever music device you have, and you know the songs that are going to come up because those are your songs and they just keep playing, and you know the next one to pop up. It could be a CD, if we still have those, 8-track, record, tape, you know what I'm talking about. When you've listened to something so much, you know the next one that's going to follow. Sometimes this happens in our own head. We have a playlist. Maybe the playlist is saying, you're not good enough. Your life is miserable. Nobody cares about you. Nobody likes you. Don't even try anymore. It's too hard. Those kinds of things, and they just keep playing over and over and over again in your mind. Maybe life isn't worth living. And we don't realize that this playlist doesn't have to be there, but it is there. And I call these our defaults. You know, anybody raised with Winnie the Pooh? You know the characters. What's an Eeyore? If you call somebody an Eeyore, what's an Eeyore? Where's my tail? Where's my tail? And there's always a little rain cloud going over his head, and he can't do the woe is me sort of thing. Do you know there are people like that? Yeah. What happens when you see an Eeyore acting like a Tigger? You know something's up. What's going on? That's not how they normally act, or a Tigger acting like an Eeyore, right? We know because there are certain people that just have certain defaults that they tend to go to. That's their normal place. We all have these. We have certain thoughts that go through our minds, and we tend towards certain feelings or moods. Do you know that that can be your activating event too? Because I meet a lot of people who will say, I don't know what my activating event is. They're talking about external, but really what's happening is I was having a perfectly fine day and my playlist popped up and started reminding me that I have to be thinking this horrible, awful thought in my head, but I didn't put it there. I didn't ask for it. It just popped up. And those can even be our activating events. Those thoughts that we have pop up, that can be an activating event, or that feeling of anxiety or depression that you wake up with. That can be an activating event too. You don't have to find a problem that brought that on. The problem is the anxiety coming up. The problem is the depression showing up even when I didn't invite it or expect it. But when these things happen, what happens? Sorry, that got a little moved over in transition. But what these activating events are, what they're activating is a belief that is already there. And the beliefs are, in other words, we call it beliefs because it starts with a B, but we could just as easily say our thoughts, our self-talk, our interpretations, our perspective, our judgment, and even the meaning we associate with these things. By the way, do you know that your activating events aren't the problem? It's the meaning you associate with those activating events. Because not everybody assigns the same meaning to that. Say, for instance, somebody says something derogatory to me. One person might say, whatever, they act like that all the time. While somebody else might say, oh no, something's wrong with me. See, they're saying this about me. I must really be that bad. Do you see how two people can assign different meanings to something? But typically at this point, what are we doing? We're often believing self-defeating and irrational things. We take on this irrational and self-defeating belief system. And I want to really hone in on this because we don't often realize how strong our beliefs can be even when they're irrational and self-defeating. Do you know that not every thought that goes through your mind you believe? Even if you have all 12,000 to 80,000 thoughts going through your head, you don't believe all of those. So why do you believe the ones that you believe? Sometimes they're the loudest. By the way, as Christians, we know who prompts that sometimes. Satan. It's not, oh, whatever, I'm just in this land of like randomness and things just pop into my head. We know that there's a great controversy going on between good and evil in this world. And it's not just random. I think even those negative thoughts that we have because we're tending towards sin and sinful thoughts. And Satan loves it when we do this. But as we have these self-defeating and irrational beliefs, what does it do? It makes us feel like a victim. Do you remember that quote we talked about earlier, where invalids, we imagine things are far worse than they really are? Well, if we believe about all of those activating events, negative, self-defeating, irrational things, then what's going to happen? We're going to have consequences. And I know some of you can't read this, but it's okay, I'll read some of them for you. There's two aspects of our consequences. Anytime you have an activating event, and then you have a belief about that activating event, the belief, I'll go back for a second, that belief is a choice. We don't often realize we're choosing something. It's just like if you had that baggage claim come in front of you at the airport, you don't just take any suitcase off of there, right? You wait for your suitcase to come out. But so many of us are just taking any old thought and running with it. But as soon as you choose the belief that you choose about that activating event, you're going to have consequences. That's why the arrows at the top are different. The activating event only activates something, but as soon as you believe something, you don't have a choice necessarily what the consequences are going to be of that. You're going to have consequences based on that belief. And that belief could be, I'm horrible, I'm awful, I can't do anything right. Well, what then do we do? Our behaviors can be things like self-harm behaviors, rumination, substance use. We can have dissociation. Sometimes people literally check out, like they're not even there anymore. They're just staring at the wall, or unfortunately, sometimes at our phones, because they don't want to deal with anything. But also, we might have lack of creative problem solving. If you're believing something such as, I can't do anything, or it doesn't matter what I do, it never goes right for me, what do you think you're not going to be doing anymore? Looking for creative solutions to your problems, because you already just decided that there is none. There's not a solution to your problem. But then also another thing that we do is we hyper-focus on the wrong things. We don't focus on the right things. If I'm always focused on my body and how it looks, can I focus on anything else throughout the day? Can anything else be that important to me if I'm hyper-focused on this? If I'm hyper-focused on food, can I focus on anything else? If I'm hyper-focused on what everybody is saying to me that might be negative, can I focus on anything productive? I cannot. Because remember, our brains only focus on one thing at a time. And then the last one of the things that might happen is we overcompensate. If I feel less than others, I might start to try to accumulate things to be just as good as somebody else. Or I might overcompensate, like sleep too much, so I don't have to face people anymore. Don't forget, one side of the spectrum can be just as bad as the other side of the spectrum. And then, what are the emotions? All kinds of emotions, but things especially like hopelessness and worthlessness that come with these beliefs that we have. Those are the consequences of the beliefs. And again, you cannot have a belief without having certain consequences of those beliefs. That's just the law of life. There is a consequence for everything we believe. But this is the problem. A through C is the problem. When our emotions and behaviors are negative, it tells us what? There's something wrong with our beliefs. You cannot have unhealthy behaviors and emotions without also having unhealthy beliefs. And so what do we have to do at this point? If I have unhealthy beliefs, what do I have to do? Well, the D and the E are the solution, and the A and through C are the problem. So, the next thing that we have to do, who can read what D stands for? We have to dispute. But what did we decide was the real problem so far? It's the belief that's the problem. So what are we doing? We're disputing the belief. And there's two things that we have to ask ourselves when it comes to disputing a belief. The first thing is this true? Now that sounds like a duh, right? Well, if I have a belief, duh, is it true? Yeah. But do you know how many people have beliefs and they never ask themselves, is this actually true, what I'm telling myself? That's an important question. Now here's the thing. How do we know what's true? God's word is the most important thing. And if you stopped there, you'd be heads and tails above other people. But I want to add a little bit more clarity to that. So, when it comes to what's true, there's three types of evidence that we need to face. And some of this comes from the Bible, so you'll see why. The first evidence is what supports this belief that I have. Now, here's the thing, you don't even have to do anything here. You know why? Because if you have an irrational belief, you're already believing anything that supports the belief. So you don't have to do anything with that one. But here's the thing, if you're in a court of law, can a judge listen to one side and go, you know what, that actually sounds really good. I think I'm just going to go with that. I don't need to hear the other side. What would happen to that judge if they did that? Hopefully they'd get fired. They'd lose their job, because what are you supposed to be as a judge? Fair and impartial and listen to both sides. So, if a judge wants to be a good judge, what do they also have to do? Listen to the evidence against the belief. Do you know human beings do not like to do this? We don't want to listen to anything that argues with our beliefs. I mean, this is quite obvious in this day and age that we don't like to do that. But even with our own beliefs. But here's the thing. Do you know the Bible talks about being the salt of the earth? Do you know, if you look that up in the Bible Concordance, do you know what that word actually translates to? It's in the Greek. It actually means prudence. Now, I've heard all kinds of sermons on being the salt of the earth, but I have never heard someone actually tell me what it means in the Greek. Now, maybe I haven't heard enough sermons, so I'm not taking credit for this, but it means prudence. Would a prudent person just listen to one side and make a decision if somebody's gossiping? Would a prudent person just impulsively take an opinion on something without looking at all different aspects of the situation? What does a prudent person do? They evaluate, they look at all different aspects of something. They don't just make impulsive decisions on things. How do you think our church would be? How do you think the world would be if we were all the salt of the earth? We'd be a lot healthier, right? But that's not what we do, and this is one of the problems with our thinking, is we're not prudent. We're not willing to challenge ourselves sometimes when we are believing something that's actually not even helping us. And we have to be willing to do this. But do you know there's a third aspect of evidence when it comes to the truth? And this is what happens when you are in a court of law and the judge hears both sides but doesn't have enough evidence. What does the judge do? Dismisses the case. The judge, did you know the judge doesn't have to make a statement on it or doesn't have to decide? They can dismiss it because they don't have enough evidence. Do you know what the human brain doesn't like to do? Dismiss things when we don't have enough evidence. We like to make up all kinds of things because it serves us to be able to say, oh, I have the answer to this, even if we don't have enough proof for it. We like to do this. But I like to call these cold cases. Our minds should have several files in the cold case section. The cold case section is where we say, you know what, I don't have enough evidence on that. I'm tabling that. I'm pushing that to the side until I have more information. Do you think we'd be a lot healthier if we were able to do that too? What if I think not everybody likes me, but I haven't asked anybody and nobody's told me they don't like me? Do you think that's enough evidence just because I feel like it? That's called emotional reasoning, right? We cannot do that. So we have to ask, is it true? And we have to have those three types of evidence. Not just the evidence for, but the evidence against. And what's the third one? If we even have enough evidence. We have to ask for those three things. Now, the Bible is going to have a lot of evidence in there that we can find. There's lots of promises and verses in the Bible that tell us the truth about a lot of these things. But the second thing we have to ask the question is this helpful? Do you know there are a lot of things that are true, but they're not helpful? How about so-and-so doesn't like me? Is that helpful to remind myself all day, every day for the rest of my life? What if I lost my job? I got fired. What if I keep telling myself all day, every day that I got fired? Now, it's true. Somebody fired me. There's all kinds of evidence for that. There's nothing challenging it. I did get fired. But if I'm reminding myself this every single day, all day, what can you not do when you're thinking about that all the time? You can't move forward. And the whole point of asking that second question, is this helpful, is understanding where is this holding me back versus allowing me to move forward. We need to be moving forward. Isn't the song Onward, Christian Soldiers? Not stand still and think about it too long and forever and dwell on it and mourn on it and ruminate on it, Christian soldiers? That's not an active Christian army if we're stand still, stale Christian soldiers. So if it doesn't match these two, if we can't say yes to both of these questions, Then what do we have to do? We have to reframe it. Now, what does reframe mean? Anybody in here do construction? I don't really do construction, but I think I know a little bit about it. What happens if you frame a house wrong? How hard is it to do the rest of the house? It's better to just reframe it, right? Than to try to, fudge on different areas and put too many shims in and all sorts. I'm impressed with my vocabulary. I know some things. I've learned about shims, yes. You don't want to have to do all that. You don't have to spray extra texture because the walls are all warped because you didn't get the framing right. It's better to just start over and reframe. And that's the same way with our thinking. If our thinking is wrong, if it's not true and it's not helpful, then we need to reframe our thoughts until they are true and helpful. And here are some things that I believe that Satan does to seek to harm our most holy place, and that is these different cognitive distortions. All or nothing thinking is one of them. I have to be careful because I'm getting close to the time. I can't. What time is it? It's up? I'm already done? Okay, I gotta go really fast now. So take a picture of this. I'm moving forward. Look it up on Google, cognitive distortions. You can find it that way. But these are all the cognitive distortions that we often do that keep us stuck. So in James 1:2-4, it says, "Count it all joy when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete." Those two words are actually redundant. Did you know when the Bible says perfect, it actually means complete? Yep. And by the way, who completes us? That's really important to remember. So if you're perfect, what does that mean? We're reframing perfection right here. What does it mean? Christ completes you. That's what it means. If you're perfect, Christ has completed you. Anyway, Hebrews 12:2, we do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. This is one of the ways that we can reframe our thinking, that we can recognize, wow, we're supposed to keep our eyes on Jesus. That's another way of reframing our thoughts. This is all about the controversy between good and evil. This is why I'm experiencing this. But as we do that, as we dispute, we're going to have fewer of those negative behaviors and more positive behaviors, and we're going to have fewer unpleasant emotions and more positive emotions as we reframe those beliefs. So a belief might be, an irrational belief might be, nobody likes me. And my rational belief is, you know what, I have no idea how many people actually like me and don't like me. And even, by the way, some of the people who act like they don't like you, it's not about you. It's about them. They're just not happy yet. Or maybe you've done something that you can change and fix and make yourself more likable. That's another truth. But all of these things, this is the beautiful part. We cannot necessarily do anything about the activating event. We can do something about the belief, but once we reframe those thoughts, we have better behaviors and better emotions. Do you know what starts to happen? Our relationships with people start to change. Isn't that beautiful? The politics, the weather, the traffic doesn't bother us so much anymore. And even, what is that saying? The plant that you water is the plant that grows. Do you know those feelings and thoughts that you naturally defaulted to before? Do you know what starts to happen? Those change too, and you're no longer defaulting to the depressed, anxious person that you used to be. And by the way, I am not just somebody who teaches this, I am a spokesperson for change. And why is that? Because I grew up with terrible, terrible anxiety. Terrible anxiety. And what happens when you have enough anxiety? Depression follows. And I was one of those people. And thank the Lord, he taught me his truth that has changed the way that I think, has changed my behaviors and my feelings. And now what do I get to do? I get to teach other people how to do the same thing. Amen. Praise God. Praise God. So I told you that I was going to give you resources. So if you go to the website Beautiful Minds, let me just make sure here, beautifulmindsmedical.com. We've changed it a little bit in the past. So beautifulmindsmedical.com, and you see that it says resources. There's a yellow circle around the top. You have to click on that. It also drops it if you hover over it, but you have to just click on it. Just click on it. It's kind of like a secretive passage, if you will. But click on it, and once you click on it, you'll see these resources. There's some awesome resources, but I'm not going to go through all those. There's a CBT Trigger Sheet or ABC sheet. You can click on that. You can print out as many of those as you want for free. And you can start to practice changing the way you think if you notice that you tend towards depressed or anxious thoughts. And this is the sheet that you'll get. It'll look just like this. And so I want to leave you with a couple thoughts. You should acquire habits of self-control. Your imagination was not given you to be allowed to run riot and have its own way without any effort at restraint or discipline. If the thoughts are wrong, the feelings will be wrong, and the thoughts and feelings combined make up the moral character. And how do we know somebody's moral character? By their behaviors. Is that not the cognitive behavioral therapy triangle? And who wrote this a long time before Aaron Beck ever came up with cognitive behavioral therapy? And the Bible even came up with this concept before that, too. So, Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy. How are we pure and holy? By having pure and holy thoughts, tried and true and with thanksgiving. That's one of the ways that we get out of our depression, is gratitude and thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. And by the way, if you want to see our Brain People podcast, you can find that on YouTube. And yours truly and 3 of my co-hosts, we do this. We put one out, I think it's every other Tuesday. You can download these on Spotify, Apple, whatever, blah, 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 YouTube. And you can even watch us on YouTube, too, do this. So thank you so much. And I'm grateful to have been here with you. And I hope you have a very happy rest of your time because your thoughts are right.